My name is Julia. I'm the kind of person who seems to be made up of 99% seriousness. For some reason, right now, I'm outside my home. Next to me is a single suitcase. My bare essentials are haphazardly packed inside, and in my hand are two envelopes. Just on the cusp of early summer. On the loveliest season of the year, I was kicked out of my in-laws' house. It happened without any warning. A morning just like any other. The delicious aroma wafting from the kitchen. After a quick makeup routine in my room, I headed downstairs for breakfast. The housemaid's cooking is always so delicious, I always end up overeating. Today's breakfast seems to be American style. Cheerfully humming, I opened the living room door. But what awaited me was not a wonderful breakfast. "Julia, you deceived us." My mother-in-law, upon seeing my face, teared up and began to repeat unintelligible words like liar and "I trusted you." After saying her piece, she left, leaving behind only a resentful look. On the other hand, my father-in-law just kept glaring at me, his face full of anger. What happened? It was all I could manage to utter. I have no idea why my in-laws are behaving this way towards me. After all, until yesterday, we were getting along as well as with my own parents. While I was perplexed by their inexplicable attitude, my husband Ryan, who was silently eating his breakfast, caught my eye. Last night, he'd said he'd be staying at our other home near his company, so I thought he wouldn't be here this morning. Had he come home late last night? I hurried over to Ryan as if seeking help. What's gotten into Mom and Dad? I choked on my words just as I was about to say, they're acting... Because Ryan was also acting strange. He looked at me as if he was looking at a criminal. A contemptuous, even fearful, cold stare. Ryan? You hypocrite! Ryan spat out those words. The usual kind him was nowhere to be found. Ryan, who always brought me my favorite flowers as a gift when his work kept us apart. "I'm sorry, I really wish we could go on a trip together." Even a week ago he said such things. Ryan gestured to his secretary who was standing by. The secretary responded, understood, and went upstairs. "You've done it, Julia." "Huh?" "You married me for the money, didn't you?" "What?" "You stole my mom's money." "What? Wait a minute, I didn't." "You used up such a huge amount of money, now you're trying to justify it?" What are you talking about? Dad, I really didn't." "Get out of this house." Dad?" "That's what's going on." "No!" It seems that I have been accused of squandering my mother-in-law's money, and quite a large sum at that, but I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. There's no way I would do such a thing. I pleaded over and over again, but no one would listen. I shuddered when I saw the secretary return from upstairs, holding a suitcase. My personal belongings were probably packed in there. Wait, Ryan, listen to me." "I didn't think you were that kind of person, Julia. I'm disappointed." Ryan shook his head with a regretful expression like a stage actor. He was convinced that I was the culprit. "This contains the divorce papers. Once you've signed them, send them back to me." Ryan forced the paper he had taken from his breast pocket into my hand. "What? Why?" "I can't live with someone who is only after a family inheritance. This is the unanimous decision of the family. Now get out." His voice was cold enough to freeze my spine. "That's not fair. Why would I? I really didn't do anything." Ignoring my struggles, Ryan instructed his secretary, "Don't ever let her set foot on this property again." What are you doing? Stop it!" The sturdy secretary forcefully dragged me out of the premises with my suitcase. My face was already a mess with tears. Yes, I come from a common background. I am not rich like Ryan. Money is always better to have, and I wouldn't mind having more. But I'm a very straightforward person. Even the thought of stealing never crossed my mind. A magnificent mansion. Like getting rid of a pest, the secretary tossed me out onto the street. It hadn't even been 30 minutes since I had woken up. Was I having a nightmare? My brain couldn't keep up. I felt like I was going mad. In the midst of this, the large door closed remorselessly. Why? Just before the door closed, the secretary extended his hand and forced another envelope into my hand. "This is also from Mr. Ryan. Please take it." Then the sound of the lock turning echoed and the door was fully closed. I looked inside the envelope. It contained what seemed to be a severance payment of $10,000. I married Ryan 3 years ago. I had been working as an advisory accountant for the company where my father-in-law was CEO. That being said, I had just passed my CPA exam and was more of an assistant to my colleague, graciously allowed to participate in operations out of pity. Then, one day it happened. This doesn't make sense. Something's off. Eager to be recognized as a fully fledged CPA, I had overstepped my bounds into a task assigned to my colleague. As a result, I discovered that my colleague was falsifying the books and embezzling money in the hundreds of thousands. I still remember that moment. The excitement of having struck gold, coupled with the fear of having stumbled upon a crime scene, surged through my body. In the end, I decided to report this fact to my father-in-law, the CEO. Being a fundamentally earnest person, pretending I hadn't seen it was never an option for me. Of course, I thought about reporting it to the IRS, but then my colleague wouldn't be able to be a CPA anymore. Having finally become a CPA after years of effort, I found it hard to do something so drastic. My father-in-law, who had built a huge fortune in one generation, was rather lax with money management. He had been cunningly targeted. "Thank you so much, Julia. We owe you." "If it weren't for you, they would have kept siphoning off money indefinitely." I was celebrated by the CEO and his wife as if I were a hero who had saved the world. "Julia, if you're not seeing anyone right now, would you consider marrying our son?" I wondered if it was common for wealthy people to exaggerate their flattery. Not knowing how to react, I just laughed it off at the time. However, the father-in-law's wish for marriage was serious. By the time I realized it, I was being introduced to his son, who also praised me as a hero who defended the assets. Being praised like that, I didn't feel bad. Moreover, having been belittled for being too serious for so long, it felt as if it was proof that good things come from living sincerely and earnestly, and I was happy. I, who was a mere trainee CPA, was promoted to an official advisory accountant and even appointed as the personal secretary to his son. Ryan, the son, was the typical privileged type, always optimistic and thinking it'll work out somehow. I found myself at first annoyed, but gradually discovering happiness and helping Ryan with his dependency on me. "Ryan, you need to leave for the business meeting soon." "I'll be fine. I'll make it in time." "Are you going to put the driver in a tough spot again?" "No, I'll handle the rest. You should get going." Perhaps he too saw me, with my meticulousness, as a good partner. We started dating, and, as my father-in-law hoped, we got married amid an overwhelming welcome. Fast forward 3 years. And the relationship between Ryan, myself, and my in-laws hasn't changed. The only major change was my father-in-law's decision to hand the reins of the company over to Ryan. To facilitate this, my mother-in-law and I found ourselves running around, paying courtesy visits to various parties, preparing for my father-in-law's retirement and Ryan's board debut. That's why tonight, my mother-in-law and I were supposed to attend a business partner's anniversary party. But instead, I found myself in a stark business hotel room. In my anger and frustration, I even considered just going back to my parents' home. But that didn't sit well with me. If he wants a divorce, that's fine. But as someone who's always lived by being honest and sincere, leaving as a thief is something I can't accept. I sat on the bed and looked at the contents of the envelope again. Divorce papers and a severance payment. Shaking my head, I held back my tears. I need to calm down. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes and thought. I haven't taken my mother-in-law's money. This is a fact. So that means someone else has done something. I felt the rush of excitement and fear again. I picked up the bundle of $10,000. I'll put it to good use. I quickly retouched my makeup and headed to the private detective's office. My cell phone rang a week later.
Here are the results of the investigation.
What? In a room of a shared office building, stacks of paper clipped together was placed on the reception table. The report was thicker than I had imagined. With trembling hands, I flipped one page after another. What? Huh? I was startled multiple times before I finished reading everything. Staggering, I stood up, clutching my spinning head. When I went out of the building, an unpleasantly refreshing breeze blew. It was all a lie. I squatted down as if surrendering my body to the shade of a street tree. Unsuspecting passerby looked at me curiously as they walked past. I, who had learned the truth. I was torn between choices and finally decided to visit my in-laws' home.
Why did you let her in the house?
Well, taking over from the maid who hung her head in the wake of being scolded, I presented my signed divorce papers to my father-in-law. I brought these.
We told you to mail them.
If you wish for a divorce, I have no objections, but I absolutely cannot tolerate being called a thief.
Even at this stage, you still say that.
Snatching the divorce papers, my father-in-law turned on his heel to leave. But I declared to his back, I demand an apology from all of you. If you cannot accept that, I am prepared to fight this in court. At the mention of court, my father-in-law stopped. I was happy that you accepted me, a commoner. I liked you and my mother-in-law, but... I took a deep breath, clenching my fists. Then I let it out at once. I really didn't do anything. Do you understand? Let me say it again. I didn't do anything. I said it as calmly as possible. What? What do you mean by I didn't? Mother-in-law, who seemed to have been listening to our conversation from the shadows, joined in with a puzzled look on her face. I mean exactly what I said. I took out the investigation report from my bag and handed it to her, saying, Please take a look. What? What's this?
What happened?
The two of them were devouring the report. It looked like they were about to faint. The person who stole my mother-in-law's money, it was Ryan. Before our marriage, Ryan had a terrible habit of overspending. He said, We have enough wealth in our family to play and live for a lifetime. He always went abroad to lavish himself. His favorite was gambling, and he used to bet hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. Even his parents felt a sense of crisis about this, so they took measures to prevent Ryan from freely using their money. Then they rebuked Ryan, telling him to earn his own money. But once the habit of extravagance sets in, it's not easy to get rid of it. So Ryan started to think. He was wondering how to get a large amount of money. That's when he instigated the embezzlement that I uncovered. Ryan had manipulated my former colleague, who was my father-in-law's accounting consultant, to falsify the books. Because I assumed it was my former colleague's doing and reported it to my father-in-law without delving further, I never reached the mastermind. In reality, all the money that my senior had manipulated was going into Ryan's pocket. When I found out about my senior's embezzlement, Ryan was thankful to me along with his parents, but he seemed to be seething inside.
Were the accountant and Ryan involved?
It's more like an affair, isn't it? She was married at the time. Still, Ryan told her, I love you. I want to pool money to live together, and had her embezzle. In the end, my former colleague was fired for her misdeeds. Furthermore, she was divorced because her husband had had enough of her. Despite faithfully following Ryan's selfish request to not mention his name, he ended up marrying me. Ryan persuaded her by saying this. When I opened the report to the relevant page, I stiffened my resolve, vowing not to shed a tear, and read aloud the text written there. I married Julia just to distract my parents. By making Julia, who is serious about money, my wife, I could loosen my parents' vigilance. That way, I could get as much money as I wanted. Indeed, everything went as he planned. My in-laws, having seen that I had a track record of catching embezzlers, let their guard down about Ryan's spending because I was their son's wife. Mother-in-law, why did you think that I stole your money? That's because Ryan said he left my card with you, Julia. My mother-in-law averted her gaze from me. Ryan, he's been working seriously lately, and I thought there might be times when it doesn't look good to pay in cash, so I let him carry my credit card. But at that time, Ryan said, I mustn't use it limitlessly, so I'll have Julia manage it. So that's why I was accused of being a thief. Just so you know, I didn't even hear about this from Ryan. Perhaps unable to hide her shock at being deceived by her son, she wore a lifeless expression. By the way, mother-in-law, did you read about what your stolen money was used for? I don't understand anything anymore. Her voice was barely audible. Tears welled up in my mother-in-law's eyes and began to flow. I handed the report back to them. Huh? The purchase of a condominium?
Let me see. Huh? But he already has another house near his office.
This is a condo purchased for the senior accountant. Ryan has been involved with her all along. Lately, he's been too busy with work and has been staying at the other house a lot. Seems like he was actually staying at her place. Ryan has always been with that woman? He definitely loved her more than me. Julia. I continued to speak, void of emotion. I had read this disgusting report over and over before coming here, and I've already cried all I could. It seems Ryan is having quite a good time with the senior accountant. After all, the two of them frequent the underground casinos.
Underground casinos?
If you could, please look at the last page. My father-in-law hurriedly flipped the pages.
Dad, what's with this amount?
He's in deep with the underground casino. For the foreseeable future, he'll be struggling to pay off his debt. Underground casino? My father-in-law sank to the floor, overwhelmed. Just to confirm, no other cards have been compromised, right?
Huh?
Upon hearing my question, my father-in-law dashed towards the telephone in a panic. Stop it! Cancel that card, now! His voice echoed throughout the house. Later, I received a formal apology from my in-laws. They apologized for hiding their son's excessive spending and for his infidelity. I am not completely satisfied since I haven't received an apology from Ryan himself, but I appreciate your honesty. I have filled out the divorce papers already. Here. I gave a small nod and began to pack my things when they implored. Wait, Julia. Yes, stay with us, Julia. We want you here. Their attitude had changed drastically from a week ago. After treating me like a thief, I'm sorry, but don't you think that it's a bit selfish? I loved you both. You treated me like your daughter, and for that, I'm truly grateful. But you completely ignored my words, my feelings. Do you have any idea how frustrating that was for me? I had tried to hold them back, but a tear slipped from my eye. That single tear was the trigger, and soon others followed, streaming down my cheeks. Julia! The divorce papers had been filled out accurately. This divorce is also the wish of your dear son. Why not respect his feelings? He appears to have a new partner. After wiping away my tears, I added a final touch of sarcasm. It was then an alarm started blaring throughout the house. What? Caught off guard by the sudden noise, I scrunched up my face. My father-in-law then grabbed my wrist. Hey, what are you?
You should come too, honey.
What are you doing? They led me to the garden. There, I saw the gate that had shut me out a week ago. And then we heard a voice from outside.
Hey, the gate won't open. Isn't anyone home? What the hell? My card isn't working either. Damn it.
It was Ryan, grumbling and banging on the gate with all his might. The incredibly disturbing alarm continued to blare, refusing to stop.
Listen carefully, Ryan. Huh? Dad, are you there? Something's wrong with my key. Can you open it from your side? I said listen, Ryan.
What?
What's up?
Ryan faltered, sensing something off about his father's demeanor.
You have no right to open this gate. What? We've just revoked your access. Why the hell would you do that? Isn't it obvious? I didn't think you could be so oblivious.
We know everything. All of it.
Is Mom there too? Ryan, Julia was so precious to us, but you're different. We never want to see your face again. What? What's going on? Mom, you're there, right? Say something.
We know that you framed Julia. We know you were involved in that embezzlement case. We know about your affair and your debts. We know everything.
Hold on. Where did you get such Nonsense from. Don't spew lies.
Ryan desperately continued to defend himself. I was feeling anxious inside. Would this couple be swayed by their son's words and call me a liar once more? But my fear was unnecessary.
I trust Julia.
So do I. Dad, Mom?
We are truly sorry. Please, would you consider taking my place?
What?
Hey, is Julia there too, huh?
Ryan's voice, filled with rage, echoed through the air. He seemed to be causing quite a ruckus. However, unfortunately for Ryan, his resistance did not last long. The security staff that showed up after a while managed to calm him down. In the end, I decided to accept my father-in-law's proposal, but I asked for one condition. I will never lie. Therefore, can you trust me at all times? They both nodded firmly. A year later, do you really think I can handle being an executive? I hesitated in front of the door to the executive office. My father-in-law thumped me on the shoulder. Ryan and I had divorced, but I still called the CEO Dad as usual.
It was a unanimous decision.
But?
Julia, what this company needs is someone who is honest and sincere. It's a perfect job for you, isn't it?
My father-in-law gave me a gentle smile, but I decided to throw a slightly malicious question at him. Don't you regret kicking out Ryan? After all, he should be the one standing here. After that incident, the in-laws had distanced themselves from Ryan. At first, Ryan often came begging for money, but once he realized that they would not respond, he stopped coming. The son who had disappeared with a huge amount of debt. I wonder if he's still living with that senior.
Ryan.
He sighed a small sigh, seeming lonely.
But the one who should be standing here is not Ryan. The load was too heavy for him. Well, we who spoiled him too much are to blame.
Dad!
Hey, don't look so down. Stand up straight with pride.
Yes. I reached out for the handle leading to the executive office. The door opened smoothly, like an automatic door.